First question today for the panel and for your consideration is, in light of our theme, what do you believe is the present state of worship within the local church? And what needs to be done, if anything, to address your stated challenges? In light of our theme, what do you believe is the present state of worship within the local church? And what needs to be done, if anything, to address your stated challenges? We're
together. I am in agreement with everything that I've heard. I'm bringing you back to a biblical reference. Jesus talked to a woman at the well. He talked to a Samaritan woman, and a Samaritan was outside of Israel. They were on a mountain, and they were more religious than those down in Jerusalem. They were more stoic. They were more into the ritual and the liturgy. They were more excellent at the law than those down in Israel. So when Jesus meets this woman and they begin to have a conversation, she goes into religion with him and says, wait, we worship here on the mountain. Our fathers say we worship here on the mountain. Well, you all say that you worship God in Jerusalem. Jesus says the problem with this is you worship that which you don't know. You have no understanding of worship. In regards to what Pastor Triplett said, you have no understanding of worship. You don't understand because it's based on your religiosity. It's based on your feelings and your emotions. It's based on the endorphins. I got to make a note of this. No, I'm serious because I'm learning. It's based on your endorphins. It's based on your emotionalism. And that's what we see a lot in church. Jesus said, you don't even know what you're doing. You have no clue. You're religious, but you don't have any clue as to what worship really is. Worship is not just an emotional experience. Jesus said, they that worship God must worship him two ways, in spirit and in truth. And in our congregations, we got a lot of spirit. We'll worship and we'll get emotional over a song that goes forth, but we don't know the truth. The truth only comes by the word. And if you don't know the word, you're just going through the emotional gyrations, and you wind up in the same place that you were as soon as you finished, because as soon as the emotions are over, you're back at square one. But it's the spirit coupled with the truth that brings you into the worthship, the understanding of the worth of God, understanding how great and glorious he is, understanding his precepts, understanding who he is and what he desires. Worship has got to be based on our understanding God. Hallelujah. We got to know. When you go into the book of Isaiah thought that he understood God until his uncle died. And when Uzziah died, in the year King Uzziah died, he said, that's when I finally saw the Lord. But he wasn't anything like religion painted him to be. He was high, lifted up, seated upon his throne. And he wasn't in the temple. He was too great for the temple. And only his glory, his presence, his train filled the temple. He said, and when I saw how great God was and how worthy he was, I saw how worthless I am. And no matter what title I had, prophet, no matter what great swelling words I spoke in the past, I said, woe is me. I am undone. I've been talking a lot, but I really didn't know the true worth of God. I'm from a people of unclean lips, and my lips are unclean too. And it's only by the revelation of who God was that he could really get into the worship or the worthness of God. When we get into the music, it's really not worship. Right. When we get into the music, it's just spiritual entertainment. Just because I cry doesn't mean that I know who God is. Hallelujah. But when I get into the word and I read Isaiah 40, and I read Isaiah 40, and it speaks of the greatness of our God, the awesomeness of our God, the majesty of our God, it brings me to a point of understanding that this is not just a religion, this is a relationship. And in this relationship, I bow my knee to the God of all creation. I bow my knee to him who is greater than all. He said everything else is just a drop in the bucket. And when I see this, I go into understanding who he is, and I lay myself prostrate. And I see the worth of God. How we change it, I agree with Pastor Triplett again. How we change it, we go to 1 Chronicles, the 15th chapter. And when Dave gets into office, when Dave becomes king, Dave says everything's all set up. It's nice, but this ain't the right way. So he took everything down and reformed the whole entire thing. And he put Azaziah, or whatever the names is, and Merari and Metanai and Platabadas. And he took everything down that was put there for show but had no real purpose. And he put up folk that were skillful, that were equipped, that were absolutely qualified by the relationship with God. Hallelujah. And then he said in about the 13th verse, he said, listen, you are the chief of the fathers of the Levites. So the first thing you got to do is you got to sanctify yourself. And then when you sanctify yourself and separate yourself from sin and separate yourself from carnality, make sure everybody with you is sanctified. Because you got to bring in the presence of God. Hallelujah. And when you bring in the presence of the Lord, you got to be clean, and you got to do it according to the prescribed way. He said, because we didn't do it right the first time, there's a breach between us and God. He said, we didn't do it right the first time. There's a breach between us and God because although we did it, we didn't do it after the right order. And then once he put everybody in their right place, the Bible said that the glory of God fell so greatly that when they took the Ark of the Covenant and the priest's feet touched the water parted and they walked across on dry ground. That's true worship. That's absolutely what we need to do, is we need to get back in, and the leaders need to become a part of this. The leaders need to become a part of the worship. The leaders need to sit down and evaluate what we're doing and how we're doing it, and teach and remove and replace or reform and cause them to understand what it is they're doing. So this way, when we get to the pulpit, the presence of God will be so absolutely tangible. Hallelujah. That's all I got to say.
All right, let me